Saints fans and who-dats from all over the world. It's time for the Bayou Blitz. With your host, Bob Rose.
Good evening, New Orleans Saints fans of the NFL, and fans of the Bayou Blitz everywhere. We welcome you to another Wednesday evening, and happy Ash Wednesday to those who celebrate it. I hope everybody is doing well. We are happy to be joining you. I am Bob Rose, and I'm joined by my good friend Kyle T. Mosley, and we are your franchise tagged hosts for the 2019 New Orleans Saints season. How are you tonight, Kyle?
I'm sorry. I think Mickey Loomis rescinded my tag, so I don't think I'm going to be tagged this year. I'm a free agent, baby.
Well, yeah, I guess I lied to our listeners. They never offered me a franchise tag. They challenged me to test the open market, and after no takers, I think I'm playing for free again this season.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll get picked up by the AFL or the XFL. One of those guys. Look, man, we got a special guest with us again from Cali, Mr. Quinn Early. What's going on, Quinn?
How you guys doing?
Good. Good to have you on board with us, baby.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. I mean, you are literally the jack of all trades. Former great wide receiver, stuntman, actor, author, friend. I hope everything is going well with you and family, Quinn.
Yeah, things are going great.
Good.
It's going well. That's awesome.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Excellent to hear. Well, I mean, as we all know, guys, we put the failures of not the failures, the bitter disappointment of the end of the 2018 Saints season. That's, I think, safe to say that's in all of our rearview mirrors, and we're gearing up for free agency. But guys, we know what New Orleans Saints social media is. It is like we all three of us have a pretty good feel for it. And it cracks us up every single year. People are ready to jump off of the bridge because the New Orleans Saints have no cap money. Oh my God, what are they going to do? They need this, that, and everything else. They need to sign everybody that is available to sign. And oh my God, how are they going to do it when they have no money? It's an entertaining time of year, to say the least.
Yeah.
Quinn, you've been down this road. I mean, you've been. You played opened your career with the San Diego Chargers, and then, of course, we were extremely lucky to get you in New Orleans. And then after New Orleans, you had a couple of fine seasons in Buffalo as well. Tell us what it's like this time of year as a pending free agent player.
It's definitely stressful. I think that knowing that you're going to be a free agent at the end of the year, it's important to obviously have a great season, right? So that your options are a little more in control. But it's stressful, especially for guys. I think what people don't realize also is that, we're also family men. I remember being a free agent and having to move my family, to a new city if things didn't work out with my former team. And so there were those things. Obviously, financially, you want to be set as best as possible. But, it can be an exciting time, but it's also a stressful time, to say the least, for the players.
Now, when you were the first time you hit free agency was, of course, when you left San Diego and ended up in New Orleans. If I'm not mistaken, the free agency, the whole league was in kind of a different setup at that point in time.
Right.
Was there a lot of courting? Did a lot of different teams court you, or were you pretty focused on where you wanted to go?
Well, what happened then, like you said, was different back then. Have the free agency, and at the end of the year, we seen.
Hey, Quinn. Hello.
Yeah.
I think we're losing Quinn. Quinn, can
Hold
we?
on. You guys hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So, like I was saying, back then it was a different scenario. They used to have what's called Plan B free agency, and every team would have to put 15 players on a list, and it would generally be, the least desirable players that teams wanted to keep on the team, and then they were welcome to shop themselves, and other teams could court them. So in 1990, which was my last year with the Chargers, they put me on that list. And, as a player, it's kind of a letdown, from an ego standpoint. It's like, oh, wow, the team doesn't want me anymore. So wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I actually got calls from about 20 teams in the league and basically went on recruiting trips. It's almost like I was back in high school trying to pick, what college I was going to go to, and visited a bunch of teams. And when I finally landed in New Orleans, I knew before I left that city that I was going to play for the Saints. Jim Finks was the GM at the time, and he made me, he had me work out, and then he made me an offer right then and there, and I ended up staying. It was great.
Did the other teams make you an offer on the spot as well before you got to the Saints?
No, that was one of the differences. I felt like they really wanted me there, and they didn't want me looking any further. I went to some other teams. They had some interest, and but I really felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And what's funny is at the time, not knowing much about New Orleans, I just knew that, the Saints were kind of up and coming, but historically they weren't a winning organization. They weren't really on the top of my list. I was looking at, the Green Bay Packers and, the Kansas City Chiefs. And, I was like, all right, I guess I'll go to New Orleans. But by the time I got there, I worked out and I spoke to everyone. I knew in my heart that that's where I was supposed to be. Worked out great.
Yeah, it worked out great for us too. And, for those of us that have followed the team for so long, I mean, we were certainly lucky to have you for a handful of extremely productive years, as a Saint. Again, and I know we thanked you before, but we can never thank you enough for the contributions you made, not only to the franchise, but to the NFL in general, during your playing career, and then, of course, afterward as well.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you real quick, it was a totally different scenario, once I left New Orleans. I really wanted to stay, but I think, at the time, and again, it's a business, I get it, but, they were trying to save money. I just wanted what the other starting receiver was making, and they couldn't really, offer that. And I was an older player, so from a business standpoint, I had to, move on. But again, man, by far the best time in my career was when I was with the Saints.
When you go on these recruiting trips and well, you call it recruiting trips, but do the teams reach out to your agent first, or do they contact you directly at sometimes?
I'll tell you, I was getting calls directly. It's they would just call and say, hey, listen, we're really interested. We like what you do. We like, the kind of player you are, how you carry yourself off the field, and we really want you to be a part of our organization. And then they say, okay, what we're going to do next, we're going to reach out to your agent and we'll talk to them. We want you to come out and take a visit, all that stuff. So they set that up. And I think really they get together with your agent once they decide that they have interest in you and you have interest in them, then that's when the agent comes in.
Now, I would think in a situation like that, too, there's a lot of player-to-player recruiting going on. Even during the previous season, for example, your final season with the Chargers was in 1990. So knowing that you could be a pending free agent at the end of that season, or at least that it was possible at the time, would different players talk to you and, hey, if something happens, you should really consider coming here, or things like that?
Well, I think, during the time when I was playing for the Chargers and then transitioning out, I was still a young player. I wasn't really that established yet. I think people just knew me around the league as having potential. So I didn't really hear from anybody at that point. When I really got recruited by other players was when I went from New Orleans to Buffalo. Charlie Joyner was the receiver coach for the Chargers when I was there, and he had become the receiver coach for the Buffalo Bills. And then also Dan Henning was my head coach.
Wow.
My last 2 years. I know I said this last all the time. But he was the head coach my last 2 years with the Chargers, and now was the offensive coordinator with the Bills. So he knew what I could do. And at that time, they didn't know if Andre Reed was going to be coming back. So Jim Kelly contacted me, and he really wanted me there. I mean, when I went to visit, he picked me up at the airport. We had lunch together. We spent some time together. So, again, that was a scenario where they really laid out the red carpet and let me know that I was extremely wanted in that city.
Nice. Well, Jim Everett, if you're listening, you could have kept Quinn early if you would have taken him on some more vacations or something like that. We now that we know what Jim Kelly did to lure Quinn over there.
Yeah, I'm going to call Jim after we hang up and let him know it's not too late. We can still take me on some vacations if he wants. That's pretty funny.
Well, but I'll tell you. Looking at the Saints' current receiving core, a lot of people think that should be high on their list of priorities this coming season. Speaking of getting a receiver like you in free agency. And listen, Michael Thomas, we know that he is one of the stars of the league. Definitely in the conversation with the best wide receiver in the NFL right now.
Right.
But MT carried a heavy load in 2018, extremely heavy. And I guess my first question to you is, does the Saints' current receiving core, do they have enough pieces in place to kind of relieve that pressure off of him in the 2019 season?
Well, I think overall, I think they have a pretty good squad across the board. I think that, I don't think they necessarily need to go with a first-round pick to get a receiver, maybe get a quality receiver in free agency. And then, maybe draft one in maybe the mid-round. I think from a receiving standpoint, a more eminent need would be probably at the tight end position. And right. I think that there are some good quality tight ends coming out. I don't know if some of these guys will be around, but you have Irv Smith, who's, his dad was my teammate on the Saints. Mm-hmm. You have the two tight ends from my college, Iowa. They're pretty good players. I don't know if those guys will be around, but I think if you had a really good tight end, think about back when Jimmy Graham was playing for the Saints, and he was making some really nice. He was really complimentary to the receiving core, making a lot of plays for Drew. So I think that would be a smart thing to do, get a tight end, and then maybe a free agent receiver, and then maybe one, in the higher mid rounds.
And you're absolutely correct, and I couldn't agree more that I personally would put tight ends much higher on the priority list than another wide receiver at this point. Mm-hmm. I love Noah Fant from Iowa. I love Irv Smith. I would love to see either one of those guys in a Saints uniform. You had some pretty good. You played with some pretty good tight ends through your career as well. In New Orleans, and I believe you had Pete Metzelaars when you were in Buffalo as well. Tell us how important a good receiving tight end is to what you do as a wideout, either lined out wide or especially in the slot.
Yeah, that just adds more problems for the defenses that you're going to face. I had a chance to play with Irv Smith, Wesley Walls, who was a phenomenal player. My years when I was there. Hobie Brenner when I came in. Those guys really made a lot of plays. If it wasn't the perfect scenario for the receivers on that particular day, then we knew that the guys inside, the tight ends, could make some plays. And I think sometimes that's overlooked. People think, you got to have wide receivers that can stretch the field. But when you have guys that can go down the middle and make those plays, from the inside, those bigger guys. I mean, that's just those players are invaluable.
Based off of what you saw from the Saints receivers, they have two young receivers on their roster. Keith Kirkwood and Traquan Smith.
Right.
What did you see in each of their games this season or this past year that makes you believe that they are able to take a big leap in their second season?
I think that both of those guys have a huge upside. You have to remember that it's a big transition from college to the NFL game. It's just a totally different game. And I think that, by having, Michael Thomas there to, mentor those guys and show them, what it takes to be on that level, I think that they're only going to get better. And I think they're going to bring a lot to the table in the upcoming years. My rookie year, I think I caught 29 passes, I had a handful of touchdowns, and that was considered a pretty successful year. And it took me really a few seasons to really understand the work ethic that it takes, the preparation that it takes, and then just the confidence to know that, you can make plays time after time, week after week, year after year. And once I got all that concept down, then my career really took off. So I think, nowadays everybody's so impatient, and it's like, we need it now. We got to have these guys step up right now. Even at the quarterback position, back when I was playing, your quarterback would get, at least a couple of seasons, before they expected, playoffs and all that type of stuff. Whereas now, those guys come in now and they're expected to play now and be successful now. So I think that those guys can, have some success, starting this upcoming year and moving forward.
So when just listening to what you're saying, it gives us encouragement to look at a guy like Traquan Smith or Keith Kirkwood, where I know in the playoffs people wanted more production from those young guys. But I think after this season and having another training camp under their belt, as well as some off-season, the mini camps and everything else, do you really believe that, I guess, both of those guys can and will be able to take it to the next level?
I do. I definitely do. Again, just having that first season under your belt, as a rookie, you're going, man, this game's a little bit different. It's faster. Being open in college, is, you have a yard of separation, whereas being open in the NFL, the guy might be right on you and you're expected to catch that ball anyway. So I think that their understanding of the game, learning the preparation, and the best, having Drew as their quarterback is also another plus. So having a number one wide receiver like Thomas and then having Drew, it's important for those guys to spend that classroom time, spend that weight room time, get in there early, be the last one to leave. And I think if they put that kind of energy into it, then that's what they're going to get out of it. If they don't do that, then it could go the other way. So I think, if they realize and really, marry themselves to that kind of work ethic, there's no reason why they can't be extremely successful this upcoming year.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree with what Kyle said. I mean, a lot of the things that you're saying are extremely encouraging. And Trey and Keith both showed us a lot of good things, I think, this past season. I think the thing that has a lot of Saints fans worried was their lack of consistency.
Right.
Does that? Did you find yourself able to be more consistent the more you worked with your quarterback? Like, did you work with your quarterbacks a lot in the off season, for example?
I did. And I think, there's a couple of things that go along with that. It's just, and what I always, in coaching young people, I always encourage them, especially at the wide receiver position, to catch 100 balls every day, catch balls every day, because that's really sharpening your tool, which is your hands. That's one thing. It's also, your quarterback having that confidence in you. Drew knows that if he throws the ball anywhere in the vicinity of Mike Thomas, he's going to catch the ball. Something good's going to happen. And as a young player, you want to show your quarterback that I can be that guy too. So that on the snap of the ball, he sees you over there. He knows that when he takes his drop and he just lets the ball fly, the chances are you're going to make a play. So it's important for them in, the OTAs, in mini camp, going into training camp and through training camp, just to build that consistency so that Drew knows that they're going to make a play when that ball comes to them. And then it's just the trust factor. It's just believing that I'm going to get open, I'm going to make a play, and knowing that when I come out of my break, the ball is going to be coming my way, and then Drew just believing in those guys. I think so. It's a lot of factors, but, they're definitely doable, and, they just have to build during, this, the time of the off season.
Did you have a chance to look at any of the combine and pay attention to any of the young wide receivers?
I did. And there are some quality guys out there. I'll tell you one stat that I found interesting was, everybody's always looking for the 4.2, 4.3 guy in the 40s. And to me, 40s are extremely overrated, right? Because I've known a lot of super fast, crappy football players. You know what I mean? It's one thing they said, listen, if you look at the guys who are most successful, and a lot of those guys are the 4.4 guys, the low 4.5 guys.
Yeah.
But there's, but anyway, that was just FYI statistic. It doesn't really mean anything, but I did see a lot of talent out there. And it always seems like every year there's a lot of talent, but I'll tell you, the thing is that it's all about once you put that helmet on, you strap your chin strap, and the bullets start flying. That's when you really can tell who's who, especially in this league. But I did see a lot of potential for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I noticed when I was looking at the list of the guys who ran like 4.2 to 4.3, and the guys that have done it over the past, let's say, 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very few of those guys, like you said, were ever productive in the National Football League.
Right.
That's the thing that struck me. I was like, well, I remember when this kid did it, but I don't know anything he's done in his experience in the National Football League, So
right.
That makes a world of difference, because you're not running a straight line every play.
That's right. And I'll tell you, the thing about being a quality NFL receiver is you have to be able to do it all. You have to be able to block, for your guys. You have to be able to run those inside routes. You have to be able to read a defense. You have to know what down and distance it is. I mean, to be a complete receiver, that's the ultimate. And, now listen, if you can do all of those things and run a 4.2 or a 4.3, then that's phenomenal, But I think the importance really comes in crafting your game so that you can become that complete receiver.
So when you evaluate a wide receiver and doing the different drills, which drills should, like a novice like myself and other people out there, really pay attention to the wide receivers versus the 40-yard dash?
It's the little things. It's being able to come out of your breaks. It's being able to create separation between yourself and the defensive back. It's being able to know the technique that you're supposed to be using when it's a zone defense. How to, like when it's a cover 2, you have a cornerback who's up on you, but his job is to protect that little 5-yard zone right there. And you have a fade down the sideline. How are you going to successfully get to that sideline and find that hole in there so the quarterback can find you? Things like that. So those small things, when you look at, like a Danny Amendola and these guys, when they're in the slot, how do they find that zone? How do they head fake outside to make the defensive back go there so that they can hook inside? Things like that, So it's all of those little nuances. I'll tell you one of the things that, and this kills me when I watch the game nowadays, everybody thinks that they're so fast that they don't have to use any technique. They can just run by everybody. Whereas what I teach is when you get to the defensive back, you want to step on his toes. You want to give him that little inside head fake to stop his feet and then go by.
Yeah.
As opposed to just trying to run by. So when I see guys just trying to run by and then they're covered, there's no technique there. And then the second thing is, what I always teach is anytime that ball is, when you're running a fade down the sideline, anytime that ball is short, stick your foot in the ground and then jump as high as you can, make that play, catch that ball at its highest point. Sometimes that's lost. I don't see as much of that these days. And the best receivers can do that. And they do that every time. And then, 8 out of 10 times they make the play.
Wow.
Well, things like that. Things like that are really important to look for when you look at, a quality receiver.
And there's no doubt I couldn't agree more. Receiver is one of the positions that I've always enjoyed studying myself. And any of our listeners, if you're young and you're a prospective wide receiver, or you're a parent of a prospective wide receiver, pay close attention to what Quinn is saying. I remember watching you through your career, and you always had the nice measurements and measurables, Quinn. You had good athletic ability, but your hands were outstanding. But what always stuck out to me was your sharp route running skills, and you could run every route on the route tree, and you could tell that you studied defenses as well. So any parent of a young receiver, pay close attention, and if you're able to go back and watch film of Quinn, watch those little things that he's talking about, because those are what sets you apart between being average and good, or good to great. But Quinn, tell us about what your combine experiences were like. I mean, you ended up coming out of Iowa as a second-round pick, and obviously the combine wasn't aired on TV quite as much as it was now. But what do you believe set you apart and vaulted you into that second round? Was it your interviews? Was it the routes that you ran at the combine? What really stood out? What do you think made you stand out from a bunch of other receivers?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the big things was the fact that I had the opportunity to play for Bill Snyder, who was, he just retired, but he was Kansas State's head coach for many years. He was my offensive coordinator when I was at Iowa. And he was all about the details. And I'll tell you, when I got to school there, I hated the guy because it seemed like he was yelling at me every day. But he really taught me how to pay attention to details, how to do things exactly right, so that, when I went to the next level, I was pretty much, ready to go. So when I went to the combines, I think I was known for my good route running. And then I was also a guy with size who had speed also. So I think those were, attractive to the scouts. And then I had a great vertical jump also. So I think all of those things kind of helped me out. I think the one thing that probably kept me from being first rounder was the fact that when I was at Iowa at the time, we used to lift weights with those Nautilus machines. Remember those things?
Oh, man. Yeah.
So when I got to my bench press and I had to bench, 225, I think I did it like 3 or 4 times, and they had to come get the bar off me. You know what I mean? So that hurt me a little bit, but I caught up once I got into the league. But no, seriously, I just worked extremely hard, and it worked out for me. So that was a really great experience, being able to participate in that combine.
How deep do you guys get with the coaches' interviews and the scouts interviewing you?
Yeah, I think I think the thing is, and what they want to know, they want to know that if they're going to invest money in a player, it's kind of like if you're interviewing for, in any job. They want to see the kind of person you are as well as what kind of football player you are. So I think that's really important. How you communicate, do you look them in the eyes, what are your study habits like? And they also, they don't only just do that, but they ask all your coaches. They ask your teammates, your college teammates. They ask people around the community. I mean, they come to your school and they're asking people, how were his grades? What kind of his teammate was he? What kind of student is he? How is he to be, when you're coaching him, How did he respond? Things like that. How does he respond to adversity? So there's a lot of detail that goes into that interview process, not just at the combines, but also just, in becoming a draft pick overall.
Well, and a great segue into what I want to ask both of you next. I'd like to address the elephant in the room, that's been circulating around social media for a couple weeks now. And guys, all three of us are friends with each other on both Twitter and Facebook. So I think I've made it pretty clear where I stand with this young man. But I want to get each of your thoughts on Antonio Brown and the situation going on with him. Quinn, I'd like to ask you first and foremost, and let's not get too personal. Would you welcome him? You're a member of the New Orleans Saints. You're the number one receiver for the New Orleans Saints right now. Mm-hmm. We talked about a potential need, et cetera, and this guy is he's not a free agent, but he is going to be moved by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Given everything that's going on around this man, what kind of fit would he be for the New Orleans Saints?
Well, there's a couple of things. I have a couple of views on it, and the first one is the fact that he is, if not the best, one of the top, 2 or 3 handful, of receivers in this league, and consistently year after year. So his skills can't be denied. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal football player. Also, as a player, sometimes you can't disclose the full story in the media, because as a player, no matter what you say, sometimes you're painted as the bad guy, or he's just he's not a team player. He's sour grapes. He's this, he's that. And I can speak from that, because when I was a free agent coming from New Orleans, there were some things that were going on that, that front office back then, they were trying to screw me basically. But I couldn't say that in the media. And then, even when they were saying, well, we tried to work with Quinn, but he didn't want to work with us, and nothing could be farther from the truth, but you can't really say those things. So it's a different scenario than what he's going through or what he's, doing right now. But just letting you know from a player standpoint, there's, you can only say so much. So I know that there's some things that went on with that organization that he doesn't talk about. Now, with that being said, he also, one moment he's talking about being a team player and he wishes other guys were team players and these things. But then in the same sentence, or in the next tweet or whatever, it's all about him and the money. You know what I mean? So it's like there's double-sided stuff going on. And I think that, the one thing that I noticed in watching the games, there were times when if he didn't get the ball or he didn't feel like he was being involved as much, even though the team was winning or won the game, he's throwing Gatorade tubs and he's kicking stuff and he's getting into arguments with people on the sideline and things like that. So to me, that's a distraction, right? Especially when they just paid him a bunch of money also. So him coming to New Orleans, I think that it would just be important just to set the tone, and hopefully he could stick with it in being a team player and everybody going towards the same goals and things like that, and that's a scenario where, we just won't know until it happens. But as far as being a player goes, he would be a great fit for that organization, and that could help them get over the top, as long as there were no side shenanigans going on. That's what I feel about it.
Bob?
You guys hear me?
Quinn?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, all right. So Bob must have dropped. Well, look.
No, I had a technical difficulty for a second, but I'm back.
Okay.
Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear what I was saying?
Yeah. Heard everything you said. Look, I agree with you, Quinn. My concern is, man, I don't know if I can get past Antonio's hairstyle and that mustache.
No, the mustache. The mustache is a problem. If nothing else, he needs to get fined.
I'm like, man, I got to deduct a couple mil right there for the fashion, man. Look, I understand he's an individual player, and Quinn, no disrespect to you being a former wide receiver, but wide receivers and cornerbacks are diva-esque, right? And look, we know what he can do, and he's proven his skills on the field. Being what? I think he was a former sixth-round pick?
Sixth round. Yes,
yeah, former sixth-round pick to excel the way he has excelled. I don't want the scripts on him later to read he was a problem, like you heard from people about Terrell Owens, even though he was the second best wide receiver, and it's debatable between he and Randy Moss at the time of their departure of leaving the game, right? You just don't want that script to ever be the part and, have those asterisks right there for a sports writer to continue to harp on whether or not you get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame or not. Whomever he goes to, he has to have a quarterback that can deliver the football to him. Bottom line. If he goes to, I heard people say, Arizona or who else? Some no-name team, possibly Raiders. Carr can possibly get the ball to him, but Arizona is questionable right now with Rosen. He's not a very efficient young quarterback at the moment. Or if they get Kyler Murray, will Kyler Murray be able to develop into the quarterback? Then you're talking about another couple of years that you still may not have a winning team, right? So therefore, is that going to exasperate his frustrations because he wants to be a part of a winning program? So wherever he goes, and I think the Steelers gave the teams a deadline for Friday, they're going to make the choice who wins the Antonio Brown sweepstakes, right? So my thing is this, man. If you put it out there, you demanded the trade, you've gone and had these interviews upon interviews, and and Quinn, a lot of stuff he was saying did not really jive, in my opinion, right? You got to you better make sure where you go is going to work well in your favor until your next contract is available. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Now, if he joins the Saints, are there going to be enough footballs to go around? That's it. Thomas over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if he joins the Saints, Sean Payton will make sure the footballs go around, right? My thing is, will Drew be able to deliver that football down the field for him? Because Antonio Brown is deadly down the field, right? And
Drew can throw it down there. Drew's accurate, man. He can get that ball.
He's accurate. Look, Quinn, look, I love Drew like a stepchild. But, I've got to be honest, man. I've been saying this for the past several years, and we said this a couple of weeks ago, right, Bob? Drew, deep ball is a little bit behind these days. And
that's ageism right now. You're saying he's old.
Look, I'm right there with the AARP. I got my card. I'm a standing member as well now. So I'm not trying to put him down, and no, please do not file an ADA defamation suit on my behalf. All I'm saying is this, man. The reality is if Drew stays another couple of years, Antonio Brown would excel with Michael Thomas. I really believe that.
Right.
After that, Antonio Brown is going to have to look for the next great to be with him.
You know what? Keep in mind too that this is what his 10th year or something coming up. So or his 9th, whatever. So it's not like he's got 7 more years. You know what I mean? So he might be winding himself down too. You know?
That's a great point. So again, the next whomever he decides, whomever the Steelers now decide to trade him to, right? He's going to have to pray that situation is in his best interest.
True.
And right now, I think the Steelers are going to do what's in their best interest.
Of course. And I'll tell you, you know, playing the wide receiver position, that definitely is a factor. You know, it's, you know, that's one position where you have to be, you know, penciled into the system, and it has to be the right quarterback. It has to be the right offense. You know, then the coaches have to decide, okay, we got to get the ball to this guy. You know, you can go on free agency and get lost because it's not the right scheme. You
Exactly.
know? And I think wherever he goes, there's an attempt to get him the ball. But like you said, you know, if he doesn't have the right quarterback, then
it's a moot point.
Good for him.
It's a moot point, man.
Yep,
And
I agree.
Look, Bob, who's out there who's really vying for him? Is it the Cardinals and the Raiders? Because I heard a couple of people pulled out today, right?
Yeah, and Quinn, I think you just said it. First time I heard it too, in the last day or two, the Packers are one of the favorites to land him. I've always been pretty vocal about it. I think Brown is going to end up in the Bay Area, either with Frisco or San Francisco or Oakland. Arizona is supposedly still in play, and there's a lot of rumors flying around about Washington as well. And we all know Dan Snyder likes to have those big names, big names and marquee lights. I could see it being one of those teams. I don't really see the Saints being in play myself. I mean, anything is possible, of course. And guys, as you know, I've been very vocal against Antonio Brown coming to New Orleans, from a personal aspect. And Quinn, I don't deny anything that you were saying whatsoever. There's always two sides to every story.
Yes, but I understand what you're saying. For sure.
But I tell you what, too, and you guys know I live in the Pittsburgh area. I'm not going to pretend to be friends with Antonio Brown. I've never had any personal contact with him. But what I've seen is this. I've been to a number of Steelers training camps. I've been to a couple of practices during the season earlier in Brown's career. And these are the things that I have seen. That Brown, and when I said this on social media, this is because of the observations that I've had. That Brown is not a good teammate. I wasn't going by what Ben Roethlisberger or what former teammates have been saying, although there has been a pretty consistent theme. I've been going by what I have seen when I've watched their games on TV or watched their games live or even watched their practices live, and seeing how he acts and interacts and reacts with teammates, or how they react and interact and react towards him. And there's not much there, guys. Quinn, you played the game on the professional level at the highest level. So you know what observations are like when your teammates just don't react to you when there's a big play.
Right.
Or how would you? And you were always a terrific teammate. You were always one of the first ones there to congratulate someone. Not so much in Antonio Brown's case, except when it was his buddy Le'Veon Bell. Those are the kind of things that stand out to me. I will never deny the man's individual skill set and how hard he works at his craft off the field. I mean, he is in tremendous shape. He is a tremendous receiver. I don't think his priorities lie in the same place that the majority of the people in that New Orleans Saints locker room where their priorities are. And that's why I don't think it should happen, and I don't think it will anyway. I think the Steelers' asking price is too high, A, for New Orleans' taste, and B, Quinn, you outlined them, and Kyle, you and I outlined them a couple of weeks ago too. I think the Saints have other needs that they need to address, perhaps before the wide receiver position.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. If he gets cut in the middle of the season and we need some wide receiver help, I would try to pick him up.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah.
No.
Look, man, did Terrell get cut in the middle of the season? Remember? he and Big Red had that towel incident. He got cut, right? We saw Terrell Owens right in the driveway doing some squats and
Sure.
whatever. Yeah, so, I mean, all I'm saying is this, guys. Look, things can happen in the league. Teams have to be conscious of chemistry, and chemistry is a big thing the Saints have at this time, and that's why I do not believe it's going to be beneficial for the Saints to bring him on. That's my opinion, final opinion, to be honest.
Like you said,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a big priority for them.
Yeah,
To bring him in.
exactly.
Hey, Quinn, I'd like to jump to the other side of the ball for a minute, if you don't mind, mainly because, you spent a career making fools of a lot of these guys. But the Saints secondary, a lot of people are putting that position fairly high on the priority list, too. I don't think a lot of people realize how young a lot of these guys are. I mean, people like players like Marshawn Lattimore, Eli Apple, Marcus Williams at safety, Von Bell at safety, all of them have played 3 years or less in the league.
Right.
But if you're going to look at the Saints secondary, you're going to say, okay, they need to add a defensive back. Which of the two positions would you think they would benefit from more, another safety or another cornerback?
I think, it's always nice when you have just that, I guess the buzzword they use nowadays, that lockdown corner,
Mm-hmm.
If you can get a guy like that, that's always a plus. And I always say this, if you have defense, if you just have a defense that's nails, then, that just makes the rest of the game easier, But sometimes, too, to me, it's all about up front. If you just, I remember when I played there, if you needed the ball back, Ricky Jackson was going to go there and knock the ball out of the court. We just had these amazing, edge guys and linebackers that could go in there and make plays when you need it. And to me, it's those up front guys. You could have a corner that runs a 5-flat 40 and can't cover anybody, but if you have those rush guys that can get in there and just raise hell on the quarterbacks, and that makes the defensive backs look good too. So in not studying their defense that much, I'd have to take a look at it. But, again, having a lockdown corner is always a good thing. But if you got those guys up front that can, not just one guy, but the whole defensive line, you can just come in there, a couple of linebackers that can make plays, and that just makes everything easier, for the offense.
Right. And I have to agree with you. Teams are built from the inside out. And, the offensive line, defensive line are really the cornerstones of every successful team. And
Absolutely.
If you can have the pressure put on the quarterback, or even the guys being able to stop the run effectively with some good support from the linebacking core, right? You're going to have a lot more success as a corner when you are out there by yourself, and
right.
If you looked at what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs this year, it's kind of like an anomaly. Their front four were very, very good. They had 60 sacks this season, but their cornerbacks were, I guess Waste Management has a contract with these guys, so they weren't that great, or they were good players, but they didn't play great. I guess that's more politically correct way of saying it. So if you still can have pressure and being one or two guys are really great playmakers, and we have Cam Jordan, I think Mr. Davenport is going to be coming into his own. The concern for me is up in the middle.
Right.
All we have is Amniata on contract. Mr. Tyler Davidson is a free agent, and Sheldon Rankins is repairing an Achilles. So we've got to do something right there. That's a major concern, that defensive tackle spot for the New Orleans Saints. If we can get if we can get a free agent and get somebody, because there's some deep assets to be able to get for the Saints in the draft. Those young men I saw those defensive linemen, man, and those guys look really, really good. Very athletic, right. And that's what I think we need. And I think if we have good coaching, and I think we have a good defensive line coach, the Saints are going to be pretty good. But we have to find the right person, right?
Yep, I agree. It's like you said, when you have, not just one good defensive lineman, but you got three of them. Now it's hard. Now, the offense becomes Swiss cheese, and now the quarterback's making bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it easier on the defensive backs. So I think that's where it starts. I think if they can get one or two, really good guys, a really good edge guy coming off that edge, just wreaking havoc, then I think that's just going to make the defense better.
Yeah, I agree.
And guys, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's always been rougher in my opinion, it's always been rougher for the defensive back when you talk about those one-on-one battles between, say, a cornerback and a receiver. Because Quinn, you knew where you were going at the snap, and they didn't. But in the rules of the game today, where the defensive back is really not allowed to touch the receiver in any way, shape, or form, I think that increases how vital getting pressure on that offensive backfield. It just increases how important that needs to be, because like you guys both pointed out, if you force that quarterback to get rid of the ball, especially before he's ready to, that does make the defensive backfield's job a little bit easier. So yeah, that front seven, the front line, and obviously the dome patrol that you played with, Quinn. You guys had a distinct advantage that most teams did not.
Right.
So you had an advantage that way going into most games.
Right. And I do have to say, I do have to make the point that if they have the rules now, if they had the rules back then that they have now, I might be playing in my 30th season right about now. You know what I mean?
Look, if we had those rules, Quinn, we'll be saying, let's see, Terrell Owens, Quinn Early, Jared Rice, Hall of Fame wide receiver. Look, man, those guys. You made up a good point, I guess, early on in our conversation when you were talking about how to run the routes and stepping on the guy's toes and what have you, right? So, but look, that's smart football where I come from. When we play street ball, you use every little advantage you could, and you play dirty. You had to play a little dirty, man.
Right.
We weren't the all-star athletes, right? But still, you got to use those little nuances to kind of trick the guys up. I don't think sometimes these guys pay attention to the game that the way they should pay attention to the game, and I like Mr. Justin Hardy, man, but in that playoff game against the Rams, he should have known the fake was coming, that fake punt, right? Instead of him bailing out, you've got to understand how to play the game and what's going to be played against you, So we need some smart players. We need some players who are going to be willing to be able to take the educational systems that Sean Payton has put in place with his coaches and that coaching staff and be able to translate that to the field. That's what New England has done so well, continue to do well over and over again, is teaching, laying good foundation. I think the Saints have that as well. We just need players, because when you get out to the field, it's now the players has to regurgitate it to their bodies, and their minds has to be in sync with their bodies to be able to say, yes, this is what we need to do at this time, right, Quinn? So
I agree. I also think I think the thing is with New England is anybody who plays there, anybody who they built this culture that I'm going to do exactly what is expected of me, and if we do that, I might get a ring.
Right.
So I think that's the huge advantage that they have, and it's the culture that they built. And I think that the Saints are right there, and they can they can get a couple more. They can get a couple in there if they just, the players have to buy in. They have to sign the right guys, and they just have to all believe.
That's right.
Well, in speaking of culture, earlier in your career with the Saints, you guys had back-to-back really tough playoff losses to the Falcons and then the Eagles.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Saints are this current group of Saints. This year to the Rams, and obviously last year to the Vikings. Tell us what the off-season recovery process is like for these guys. I mean, what kind of things did you do? Obviously, you're a professional. You still have, no matter how the previous season ends, you still have a new goal for the upcoming season. But tell us how you dealt with the disappointing playoff losses that you guys had to stomach.
I think that as a player, you have to have a different mentality than a fan. With fans, it stays with them. Some of these fans, they'll stay with 30 years from now, they'll still be talking about that loss.
Yeah.
Did you see Mardi Gras?
I will.
Did you see Mardi Gras? Look, I mean, the fans are all on it. Yes, you're correct.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's like, you can't even bring it up to some people. They might just blow a gasket. Just, I can't believe you brought that up. But as a player, you have to have a short memory. Of course you're upset about it. You have feelings about it, and you go on and it stays with you, and you have time. It's the off season. I mean, there were times, like when we lost some of those players. I remember when we lost against the Eagles, and 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, I just, like I had Tourette's or something. I was like, damn. My wife would be like, what are you, just, those players would come flooding back to you. But as time goes on, you say, okay, now it's time to get ready for the next season. You start preparing, and that's just in your rearview mirror. And it has to be for you to be successful moving forward.
What are you working on? For those that don't know, Quinn is an actor and a stuntman as well. You played a variety of roles in both movies and TV series. Do you have any projects that you're working on or involved in now?
Yeah, so right now I'm doubling Shamar Moore on the TV show SWAT.
Oh, yeah.
So I do that probably a couple of times a week. Yesterday I actually worked on there, and I had to take the front of the building exploded, to the face. And I had to, go flying out into the street. So that was my Monday. That was my Tuesday or Monday, whatever the day was. And so doing that. I got to work with, my son's a stuntman also. I got to work with him on the TV show SEAL Team last week, and we played a couple of Taliban, ISIS bad guys, and we got the Black Hawk helicopter came over and strafed us, and we died out in the field and stuff. So just then there's a lot of laughs. There's a lot of laughter in between takes and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying it, and just super appreciative that I get the opportunity to continue to do stuff I love.
Awesome. That's pretty
yeah,
good,
for
man.
Sure. So when are you going to replace Shamar with the lead role in SWAT?
Nah, that's not really my thing. I'm actually I started getting into writing, screenplays. So you guys know about my mom's book, Bryant Acres,
right?
And so I wrote a screenplay based on the book, and I'm actually starting to get quite a bit of interest in the screenplay. So
really?
Hopefully you guys will be seeing a movie in the next couple of months, couple of years here. And then, what I've realized, I really love writing. So just working on a couple of movie projects, and I can't get thrown through plate glass windows and get hit by cars forever. So I'm getting a little long in the tooth. So, hopefully I can just transition into the, getting behind the camera and writing a little bit and enjoying that.
Well, that's awesome, man. I have the book, and I still need to get you to sign the book, man. So I haven't forgotten about you.
Well, hit me, and then I'll have you send it to me. I'll sign it for you and send it back.
No problem.
But and then also just real quick, if anybody wants to purchase that book, it's BryantAcres.com, and then the proceeds go to Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's research. So anybody, and it's a great story too, so anybody who wants to read the book.
Yeah, definitely. Look, man, we really do appreciate you so much being with us.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, and hopefully we can get you on again sometime in the off season as we're getting ready for for training camp and things like that. I know you're a busy guy with a busy schedule, but we appreciate you being a friend to us and a friend to the show. But before you go, and I know we've had you on the show before, and you've talked about Bryant Akers. Tell our listeners who don't know a little bit about the book.
So the book Bryant Akers, my mother wrote this amazing story. It's about my great-grandfather, 7 generations back. And he was a free man of color during the time of slavery, pre-Civil War. And he sold himself into indentured servitude. And then he went on to become one of the wealthiest landowners in the South. So it's it's a true story. And unfortunately, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's before she had a chance to publish the book. And she asked me if I would publish it for her. So I had it published, and she passed away in 2013. So she didn't have a chance to see her dream come true. I can feel her with me all the time as I push the book out there, and I raise money for Alzheimer's research. And it's just been a phenomenal experience. And again, if anybody wants to order the book, just go to BryantAkers.com, and you can get it in paperback or on ebook. And again, the money and the proceeds go to Alzheimer's research.
And I mean that's truly an amazing story. And folks that don't that follow Kyle and I, Quinn is very active through our Facebook groups as well. So we make it real easy. And if you need the link to order the book, get in touch with any of the three of us, and we'll be happy to walk you through the process. And Quinn, if it ever does become a movie, I'd like to speak on behalf of both Kyle and myself. We're kind of actors ourselves, so we'd be happy to help you out if you ever need a hand.
All right, man. Have you guys on there for sure?
Yeah. Well, in reality, my son is an actor, and
he is.
Yeah. So he just did that Drake and Travis Scott Sicko Mode. He was in as one of the kids riding the bicycles in that video. He's done that Chris Paul State Farm commercial. He's done a Dell commercial. He's just got finished another one 2 weeks ago. So he's also a motivational speaker. Through Black History Month, he had 8 different bookings. So he's been doing pretty well at the age of 13.
Well, if this thing does become a movie, we'll have to get him in there.
Yeah, let's do so, man. Anything we can do to help out here, let us know so we can help promote it and push it out there to the public as much as we can. Okay?
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. Much appreciated.
No problem.
No, for sure, Quinn. And you take care of yourself. I know, keep in touch, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Unlike Kyle's son, though, I am not an actor. I was just joking about that. I have a face best for radio. So
hey, look. How did George Wallace do it? To be or not to be? I think I got my act together.
Exactly.
All right, man. Good having you on.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, you guys. You guys take care and let me know. I'm happy to come on anytime.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye.
All right. Babo, any last words from you?
Oh, God. I am, first of all, for those that are just tuning in, you got to go back and listen to a great show. That was former Saints great wide receiver and close friend of both Kyle's and myself, Quinn Early. We want to thank him again for coming on. I tell you what, though, he gave us some great stuff to think about, and you pointed it out during the show. I feel a lot, and I like Keith Kirkwood a lot as a young wide receiver. Traquan looks like he does have some tools, although we were both frustrated with his inconsistencies. But after talking and listening to Quinn, I feel a lot better about the wide receiver position this offseason. I think it still needs addressed, but I don't think it needs addressed with, say, their second-round pick or highly in free agency. I think the Saints will bring in a couple of pieces, maybe midline free agents. And we know that Sean Payton has a history of striking gold in late round draft choices at those skill positions. How do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, think about this. I see a lot of value on the defensive line as well as offensive linemen out there. Look, there's some value in those tight ends. Not everybody's going to choose a tight end. You can find a guy, and I think reading Barry Hurst's story about Foster from LSU and seeing some of his measurables against those other guys like Fant, I think, wow, we may have a diamond in the rough there with him. You just never know. I don't know if he's going to be around past the third round. He may not last that long, but there's some other guys from smaller schools who may not have the notoriety of some of these other guys and may not have the quickness of a Irv Smith or what have you. But you may have somebody who could be a very, very important part of the New Orleans Saints offense. And remember, Jimmy was a third-round pick, right? Not too many people really thought much about him. He did a great job in the 40 and in his jumping and shuttles and stuff, but still, people let him drop all the way down to the third round. How many of those GMs are kicking themselves?
Yeah, or you look at somebody like Antonio Gates, who's just finishing up his career, with the Chargers. Gates was I believe anyway. Gates was a late round pick, a much like Jimmy Graham, a converted basketball player, but with tremendous athletic ability. And Antonio Gates is likely to be a Hall of Fame tight end. Our own quarterback, Drew Brees, will attest to that. I mean, he made Gates early in his career. So Brees knows what kind of athletic ability or what kind of improvements a good athletic tight end can bring to an offense, like Quinn was pointing out earlier tonight. I think that this tight end group, a group of rookies coming in, it does look deep. There's some interesting names throughout free agency. I know a lot of people are saying that the free agent crop of tight ends is thin, but I'll tell you, there's still some names that I think could make some good contributions without costing the Saints a whole lot of money. I'd like to see them bring in do both, bring in a free agent tight end and address it in the mid rounds of the draft as well.
Look, and another position that people may overlook, and the Saints may address it in the later rounds, there's some pretty good running backs out there as well.
Yep.
And, we don't know what's going to really happen with the Mark Ingram situation. The Saints have been in discussions with him since this past weekend. Still no movement, but I believe Mark can and possibly will come back to the New Orleans Saints. It's not much of a market out. Well, I would hesitate to say it's not much of a market. I'm just saying they're very, in my opinion, if you look at some of the teams fitting into some of those team systems, I don't see Mark doing so as well as he does here in New Orleans.
And I know we've addressed the topic, the Ingram topic, a couple of times in the last month or so here on the show. And we've both been in agreement that there are a handful of teams that I think Mark would be a great fit for. But remember, he is not, as good as he is not going to be the top free agent back available. We talked about Antonio Brown earlier tonight. There's another, former Steeler, Le'Veon Bell. It's the number one back on everybody's free agency watch list. So I think there's not going to be a move made with Ingram on the open market until we see where Le'Veon Bell ends up. So I think that gives the Saints an advantage to strike fairly early. Because remember, free agency actually officially starts a week from today. I believe Wednesday the 13th. Is the first day after 4 p.m. is the first day that unrestricted free agents can officially sign. And when Mark Ingram signed his last contract with New Orleans, it was only a day or two before free agency before he re-signed without hitting the open market. So keep an eye on what happens through the weekend. I'm like you. I feel fairly strongly. I would be a bit surprised at this point if Ingram was not a New Orleans Saints in a New Orleans Saints uniform next year. I don't think it's going to break the bank to necessarily keep him, and I think that he wants to stay. He's a great teammate here. He has a lot of close friends on the team, and that makes a big difference. Having said that, I also agree with you. I think that running back is another position that will probably be addressed even if they keep Ingram, it won't be addressed in free agency, but maybe the later rounds of the draft. Just like with wide receiver, we know that Peyton and that scouting department has struck gold with some late round picks and unrestricted free or undrafted free agents. Excuse me. So that all skill positions are going to be addressed. And you and Quinn said it. We talked about it last week with Barry Hurstis on here. I think that we're going to see a lot of activity on the interior defensive line, and that's what could be addressed with the Saints' second-round pick, and possibly rather heavily in free agency as well.
Right. I agree. So let's see how everything translates for the New Orleans Saints and the Saints front office. Hope everybody had a great Mardi Gras. I know we're going into the Lent season and people are giving up what they're going to give up for the next 40 days. Stay true to that. But I got to give up right now. Look, you can find us on the web at www.saintsnewsnetwork.com. You can always check us out at Saints News on Twitter, Instagram, as well as on Facebook. Bob, tell everybody how they can find you.
As we wave the white flag on this week's show. We want to thank Quinn Early, our good friend Quinn Early, again for coming on. We had a great time. Hopefully you had a great time with us. We had a great time with you as always. But you can find me and my writings through the Canal Street Chronicles. Canal Street Chronicles has a Facebook page and can be found on Twitter at Saint CSC. I'm just finishing up my New Orleans Saints position grades. I'll be finishing up with the safety position before the end of the week, and then we're going to go into a free agency preview over the next handful of days before the big fun starts. Me personally, I can be found on Facebook, Bob Rose, or at Twitter, at BobbyR2613. I'm creeping up on 2,000 followers, so I would love you guys' help, and I love all of you for your support you've given to me and my work and our work here thus far. You've been awesome, and I can't thank you enough. Now, if you haven't been awesome enough to join our Facebook group, our Bayou Blitz Facebook group, then become more awesome and do so. I think a lot of our fans and followers have a blast on there. Everybody is supportive of one another. We're great at sharing information, and Kyle and I, when we have any kind of breaking news or when we release any of our articles through Saints News Network or Canal Street Chronicles, we post it on that Bayou Blitz Facebook group page first. So if you're not already a member, send us a join request. If you have a family member or friend you think would like what we do, get them involved in our fun. And we do have lots of fun. And, again, Kyle and I, we both love you and thank you for all your support.
Yeah, definitely. And I got to give a shout out to my Morehouse brother, Mr. Spike Lee, for winning an Oscar, his first Oscar. Also,
cool.
I've got to say congratulations to LeBron James for passing Michael Jordan on the all-time scoring list. And we've got to kind of give our prayers to Alex Trebek, who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. And if anybody knows, that is the final stage of a cancerous situation. So be in prayer with he and his family, and also be in prayer with my family. Just got word that one of our family members is in some dire straits right now. He just left the operation and had to be resuscitated. So HV, who is a huge NFL fan, anything football, he loves it. His number one team were the Texans since he's in Houston, but in prayer for him and keep him in prayer. All right, this is Kyle T. Mosley of Saints News Radio Network with my man Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz and Canal Street Chronicles. Bob, have a great week. Master Will and Lauren, love y'all. Y'all take care, and we will be out and back next week. Take care, Saints fans. Who dat? Bye.
Yeah.